The Season of the Haunted brought a handful of brand new exotic armor pieces into the loot pool, including the Caliban's hand gauntlets for the hunters, which have some explosive synergy, the Rain of Fire boots for the Warlock, which reload all of your weapons whenever you Icarus dash, and make fusion rifles more accurate from the air and do more damage with a built-in rampage effect, and finally, the Second Chance gauntlets for the Titan, which will be the focus of the video today. These things suck. Let's talk about why. If you're a regular viewer, hey, welcome back to the channel, and thank you so much for supporting my content. If you're new to the channel, welcome, and thanks for stopping by. If you get to the end of the video and you decide it warrants a like, then feel free to leave one, so I know you liked the content today. Let's get into the discussion about these gauntlets. All right, right off the bat, I gotta say, I absolutely love the look of these things. I think they look incredible. They're very, very Titan. They're big, they're audacious, they're in your face, and I always appreciate that about a lot of the Titan gear in the game. I mean, they weren't afraid to totally embrace the tank motif from a visual standpoint. Now, everything that follows, though, will be a pretty hefty critique of these things. And know that I play all classes in Destiny, but I play Titan the least, apparently. I have just over 1,000 hours logged on my Titan. I've noticed a trend in the Destiny community where people tend to think that the things and abilities and exotics for the classes that they play the least, they think those things are busted for some reason. Like Hunter mains, they'll complain about Titan abilities, and Warlocks will complain about the Hunters, and Titan mains, well, they tend to just not give a flying frack about anyone else. They just want to go punch stuff. But I feel differently with these things, the Second Chance gauntlets. As a Warlock main who plays Titan and Hunter a bunch on the side, I feel bad for Titan mains because the other two exotics for the other classes are just so much better. They're just way better this season. The Second Chance gauntlets are pretty terrible. First and foremost, in PvE, these gauntlets are supposed to break barrier champion shields, okay? And they can do that, but what they don't tell you is that in master difficulty activities and grandmaster activities, it takes 2 full shield tosses to break that shield. That's stupid. No one in their right mind is going to go use these over an anti-barrier weapon and sideline the chance to run, Heart of Inmost Light, the Cuirass of the Falling Star, or any of the other top shelf exotics for Titans. These are basically only good at lower tier PvE activities, and even then, it's just for the sake of throwing in an extra shield, and that's the other thing that these gauntlets do. They give the Titan an extra shield toss for the shield toss melee ability, right? That's the two things they do. They're supposed to break barrier shields, so it gives them like a shield piercing effect, and they give you an extra charge for your shield toss melee ability. Now on paper, I think that this ability is pretty cool, honestly. Like, you can begin an engagement with a shield toss into a room, let it go in before you and tag someone up. It'll give you a small boost to your shield. It's not a full void over shield, it's a really small, it'd be a little void over shield, but it's a little extra health. And then you follow it into the room and you try to win the duel with a little bit of a leg up in the fight. It also applies the volatile debuff, so enemies can potentially explode and do more damage to those around them. It can also be used to potentially clean up an enemy that you've weakened who ran for cover. But in that case, you really can't capitalize on the volatile debuff. But here's where I'm going to be really hard on these exotics. The shield toss is terrible in PvP. When you compare it to shoulder charge, it just has so few practical applications. Shoulder charge can be used to get you to lanes faster, especially in a trials round. That's really important. Getting to those lanes first and posting up, very important. It can get you out of sticky situations. It can suppress supers. It can help you cross lanes without getting sniped in the head the second you peek, and more. But the throwing shield, you're going to be hard pressed to find a few situations in a match where it's actually helpful. In my several hours with these gauntlets, I definitely had some moments. I mean, there were times where the shield was useful. I could toss it into a room and bounce it off a wall to tag someone up and then push in and clean them up. I could pair it with a weapon that had the repulsor brace perk to give me a full overshield after cleaning up the target. And those moments were definitely pretty cool. But they were so few and far between though. That's because the tracking on the shield is really low. I had people telling me on Twitter, no, these things are like homing missiles. I gotta tell you, for every one time that I had a bounce track to a target and hit them, I had half a dozen tosses where the shield would completely miss any targets. I don't know where it would go. In some cases, it would actually break the laws of physics and just bounce. It would just bounce directly back at me, even though it should, based on the angle that I threw it, it should go into the room beyond, and it'd just come right back to me. It's like, hey, what's up, man? I'm back. But additionally, the hitboxes on these shields are very, very unforgiving. I mean, you have to understand, the last 2 seasons, I've been playing more gunslinger than anything else. I've been throwing weighted knives, proximity knives, and now lightweight knives again. And I'm used to the hitboxes on those knives. And going from the throwing knife hitboxes to the hitbox for the shield toss, holy cow! You have to have a laser precision. It feels like I had tons of tosses where, I mean, it would look like it should graze the shoulder or an arm, and normally with a knife that would count. It would even count that as a body shot for sure. With Celestial Fire, it would definitely count, but not with the shield toss. The game does not give you any mercy. It does not give you the benefit of the doubt with these shields. Some would say that that's a good thing, and I mean, I might agree with you if it was the same for all classes, but it's not. It's just the shields, and that's fundamentally unfair for Titans, if you ask me. Beyond that, the shields only do 61 damage on direct hit. In the time that it takes you to do the animation and hit someone with the shield, an enemy can hit you with, 2 hand cannon shots and have 140 damage in you, while you've only tagged them up for 61. That low damage is a killer. I learned very, very quickly to never use these shield tosses in the middle of a duel. You only use them from safety. You only toss these shields when the enemy is not looking at you or they're around a corner. If they're facing you, it's a death sentence because the shield physically cannot out-damage anything at all. Any weapon is going to get you inches from death while you're tossing a paperclip at them. And this season is the season of constant healing in PvP, and that's a huge mark against these gauntlets. The 61 damage is so low that if I lead with that toss, if I throw it from safety into the room and I get a tag on it, my enemy has most likely either placed a bastion barricade, grabbed an overshield, or they've tossed a healing grenade at their feet and healed that damage. So it's gone, or they toss down a rift or a dodge roll with classy restoration, or God freaking forbid they do a combination of any of these things that I just listed, and they're a literal raid boss when I round the corner after my initial tag. That low damage can be immediately offset in today's Crucible sandbox, and that's the thing. I can throw it in, get the tag, and see the damage pop up on my screen, so I know I hit him. And I can run in to go try and capitalize on that. And by the time I'm around the corner, they're full health, overshields, and they just blast me. So even when you're using these gauntlets correctly and tossing them around corners to prime or clean up a target, they're rarely going to actually do that one thing that they're supposed to do. They're rarely going to do that thing well. And people will say, well, TV, you're missing the point on these shields. They're supposed to tag people with the volatile debuff and make them a walking bomb. And that's all well and good, but there are a few problems with the actual practical application of that idea. The volatile debuff doesn't really help your TTK too much. I mean, you're still going to, in most cases, you're still going to have to hit them with the same number of shots most of the time to detonate that debuff as you would in order to just kill them outright. So it doesn't actually help your TTK. And when you compare the radius of that detonation to the radius of a solar ignition, it's basically like throwing a pebble into a pool and hoping that it will make a big enough splash to get the suntanners on their poolside chairs wet. Meanwhile, the solar ignitions are like tossing a boulder strapped with dynamite into the deep end. These controlled demolitions, I mean, they're an actual meme, comparatively speaking. every once in about 10 matches, the stars will align and so many enemies will be grouped up so tightly that you'll get a nice multi-kill off of it. But that's not worth wasting an exotic slot for when you can just toss on the Syntheseps and ballistic slam a zone and get a team wipe, or Dune Marches can chain damage around corners and off of dead bodies. So comparatively speaking, these things, they suck. They suck compared to the exotics of the other subclasses, and they suck compared to the other mainstream Titan exotics in both PvP and PvE. And so that might lead you to ask the question, TV, what would you do to improve them? Would you just make them like every other melee ability and make them hit harder? And that's a great question. I actually think that I would avoid a damage buff. I kind of like the idea of having these melee abilities that aren't just about a bland, straightforward damage dealer, right? The shield was intended to have some utility to it beyond just damage. And I'd like to lean into that. I think you could do a number of things, but the thing I really wish they would do is the effect that Tether has, like stay within the Void family, right? That effect that Tether has when it grabs someone. It yanks them and makes you feel like you got hit by a bus. Your reticle gets shifted hard, throwing off your aim. It forces you to collect your wits and reacquire your target. You could keep the damage low on the shield toss, but make it feel like you just got hammered with a blunt object, because you did. So give it that sort of disorienting effect. That way the damage is low still, so it's not just going to automatically win an engagement, but will actually reward you for going through that whole animation and losing potential damage dealt with your weapon. Otherwise, you could add suppression to it and make it apply the you could also make it apply the volatile debuff, but to a greater extent, so it would require less damage to detonate it. I tried throwing both shields at the same target, hoping the second shield would actually detonate the debuff that the first one applied, but that doesn't work either. So you're wasting 2 melee charges just to throw 2 paper clips at the enemy, and they just laugh at you, heal the damage, kill you, teabag you, and walk away. But what are your thoughts? Do you think these shield tosses need some extra love? What would you do to them to help give them a leg up in the sandbox? Has your experience with these gauntlets been the same as mine or way different? Let me know in the comments section for sure. Thank you so much for watching the video. Feel free to leave a like on it only if you enjoyed it, and consider subscribing for additional Destiny 2 content. Be warm and well fed, my friends, and I hope to catch you in the Crucible.